welcome to the Business Standard Morning Show. I'm Kanishka Gupta. It's the 6th of December 2023 and here are the questions we will be answering today. Are women voters the new trump card? What would India gain by hosting the COP28 summit? Is the worst over for Adani Group stocks? And what is the Global South? BJP apparently took the wind out of the opposition's sails while focusing on what Narendra Modi called four biggest castes: women, poor, youth and farmers. During the just concluded state polls, women are said to have voted overwhelmingly in the favor of the BJP, putting it in a pole position for the next year's Lok Sabha polls. So are women the new electoral trump card? Abhijit Kumar answers.
The recent assembly elections in Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan have shown a significant trend. Women have voted in favor of parties advocating women's rights and providing benefits for their welfare. The Bharatiya Janata Party won 3 crucial state elections with the support of a large number of women voters. A key element in the BJP's appeal to women voters was its implementation of pro-women policies. In Madhya Pradesh, the party has actively pursued measures aimed to empowering women. Introduced in January this year, the Ladli Behna scheme is aimed to provide 1,000 rupees monthly to women from lower and middle class homes. Further, the MP government had also announced 35% women reservation in government jobs, excluding the forest department. In Rajasthan, the announcement of allowances for widows and women heads of households, subsidized LPG cylinders and free bus rides for women saw the women voting for the Congress in larger numbers instead of the BJP. These policies have apparently struck a chord with female voters, playing a decisive role in the party's electoral success. So what's the story behind the resurgence of women-centric policies culminating in electoral success?
In every state for last 10 years, what we have seen is that state governments are targeting women voters and they are mobilizing them as separate constituency. In some cases, they have received success. So, in Bihar, Nitish Kumar has certain schemes that target women, and way back 10-15 years ago. Then Mamata Banerjee, Jayalalitha in Tamil Nadu, Prime Minister Modi when he was Chief Minister in Gujarat, and now you are seeing in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. So yes, there is a long history of it.
And this trend is not unique to the BJP. The Congress party in Karnataka experienced a similar outcome in a previous election. The party had promised 2,000 rupees to the female family heads under the Griha Lakshmi scheme, subsidized electricity under the Grey Jyoti scheme, and 10 kg of free rice under the Anya Bhagya scheme, among others. The Congress promised similar benefits in Telangana this time and managed to sweep the state, defeating the incumbent BRS party. However, the success of women-centric policies varies from state to state. The effectiveness of women-centric policies depends on various factors, including the socio-economic and cultural context of each state. So, in these elections, what kind of women-centric policies struck a chord?
What has definitely clicked is that political parties promising free travel in state transport buses for women or giving them gold jewelry is now passé. Political parties still need to promise that, but now they are depositing money directly into the bank accounts of women, and that started with the Congress guarantees in Himachal Pradesh and subsequently in Karnataka. In Karnataka also we saw how more women voted for Congress than for the BJP, and now we see that trend in these elections, particularly in the Hindi heartland, where women have voted for the BJP in greater numbers.
But analysts caution against pitting women's voting interest for doles, terming it as a thought born out of patriarchal thinking and robbing the women voters of their agency. Women have emerged as a strong voting bloc in the country. Evident in the high voter turnout, experts believe that the assumption that women will vote whoever they are asked to by the family does not hold true any longer. Could that be one of the reasons why the Congress lost in Rajasthan despite its women-centric policies?
I believe the reasons in Rajasthan are somewhat different. Rajasthan, as you know, has this trend of throwing out the incumbent government, at least since 1998. Also, I think in public perception, the credibility of Modi's guarantees is much more than the credibility of Congress guarantees.
And is there a change in the voting pattern among women?
What has started happening in last few years is that women are voting independently than men, meaning that there is a divergence in choices. Women are slightly more likely to back another party. Sometimes it is BJP, sometimes it's TMC in West Bengal, it was AIDMK in Tamil Nadu, it was Left Front in Kerala. So those sort of like indicators have been present for last 5-7 years in our politics.
The representations of women contesting state elections remain abysmal as well. In Madhya Pradesh, which has 230 seats, the BJP had nominated 28 and the Congress 30 women. In the Rajasthan Assembly, with 200 seats, the Congress fielded 28 women and the BJP only 20. The representation ratio is equally low in Chhattisgarh, Mizoram, and Telangana. The recent poll results re-establish women as a crucial determinant for electoral success. Both the BJP's triumph in the latest assembly elections and the Congress's success in Karnataka underscore the impact of women-centric policies. How the political parties win and leverage the confidence of women voters may determine the big 2024 outcome.
But at the just concluded UN climate conference in Dubai, lack of women leaders around the negotiating table was noticed by many. Hillary Clinton raised this issue, saying that the tide has been turned against women in many parts of the world. Moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has proposed to host the 33rd edition of COP in India, which will take place in 2028. Earlier, it was held in 2002. So, what would India gain from hosting the COP33 meeting? Tariq Ahmed brings you the answer.
2028 में COP33 समिट को भारत में होस्ट करने का प्रस्ताव भी रखता हूं।
About 21 years after hosting the UN Conference of Parties, or COP meeting, India has once again made a strong pitch for hosting the 33rd edition of the event in the country in 2028. A lot has changed since India hosted the last COP summit on climate change in 2002. The World Meteorological Organization recently said that the decade of 2011 to 2020 was the warmest decade on record. Global mean temperature for the period was 1.10 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial average. The world is racing against time to keep this rise below the 2-degree threshold. The proposal to host the COP33 summit in India was made by Prime Minister Narendra Modi during the just concluded COP28 meeting in Dubai. The PM said that India aims to reduce the emissions intensity of its GDP by 45% by 2030. It has also decided to increase the share of non-fossil fuels to 50%. Prime Minister Modi also proposed the Green Credit Initiative, which focuses on creating carbon sinks through people's participation. Meanwhile, as the PM was attending the COP28 summit, a cyclone was brewing somewhere in the Indian Ocean. On Tuesday, that is the 5th of December, it made landfall in Andhra Pradesh, while Tamil Nadu and Puducherry were on high alert. IMD called it an unusual cyclone with destructive intensity. The weatherman said that cyclones like Migjom are rare at this time of the year, and experts said It was a clear indication of climate change. One of the worst victims of climate change, India clearly stands to gain if the world succeeds in slamming a brake on the soaring mercury. But why should India host COP33?
We saw how hosting the G20 really rallied a lot of discussion across the board and across all sectors of the informed audience on what a G20 could bring in terms of not just the visibility of India at an international stage, but also the outcomes that can go a long way in holding India's position as being the proponents of those outcomes. We got Africa inducted in the G20. We got the figures of tripling renewable energy in the G20. We got the figures of trillions of dollars of finance that is needed in the G20.
We need to continue to put pressure on developed countries who have not yet met their commitments. And when we reach 2028, it's going to be clear how we are doing in terms of our climate action, because 2030 is going to be a pivotal year when we have to reduce our emissions. So that will be a good time for us to assess the progress.
On the sidelines of COP28, over 110 countries agreed to a renewable capacity tripling target. India was not part of this list, but having already agreed to it at the G20 summit, India is already on board. Our own renewable energy expansion plans involve a tripling of capacity by 2030. But there are challenges too. India has a rapidly growing demand for electricity, and most of it, consistently over 70%, is still produced from fossil fuels, mostly coal. Last 4 years, the share of fossil fuels contribution has seen a slight increase from 71.6% in 2020 to 73% in 2023. The share of renewables in producing electricity during 2022 to 23 was just 25.44%.
India is also expanding very, very quickly its renewables share. Already, renewables are accounting 11 to 12% of the generation. In terms of capacity, we have a target of having about 50% non-fossil fuels. Whilst we are making those efforts, we also feel that in the international negotiation space, where countries sometimes don't come with moral authority or trust, for example, the US asking for phase down of fossil fuels, while it remains the largest exporter of LNG in the world today, even more than the Middle Eastern country of Qatar. For all of these reasons of energy security, India tends to feel that it must preserve its right to develop and hence the slight right to expand on coal.
India, under the current government, has been positioning itself as the leader of the global south. This was clear during the G20 summit. Experts say that the proposal for hosting the COP33 also falls along the same line. Also, India may use the hosting opportunity to demand more contribution from the global north.
Moving on, Adani Group's market capitalization is back to near 13 trillion rupees after the stocks rallied up to 44% in just 1 week. With most of the regulatory overhangs likely behind the group, is the worst over for the ports to power conglomerate? Well, Nikita Vashisht takes a deep dive.
Adani Group stocks have been on a roll ever since the Supreme Court of India reserved its judgment on November 27 in the Hindenburg Group case. In just 5 sessions, shares of the Gautam Adani-led group companies have zoomed between 23 and 44% on the bourses, as against an up move of 5% in the benchmark Sensex index. This has led to an increment of nearly 2 trillion rupees in the group's market capitalization, which now stands at 13 trillion rupees. With this, Gautam Adani has added $5.6 billion to his net worth in a week and now ranks at the 20th position on the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. Shares of Adani Group had tumbled up to 82% within weeks of the release of a report by Hindenburg Group, a US-based short seller which had launched a scathing attack on the group, accusing the conglomerate of long-running stock manipulation and accounting fraud. Last week, however, the Supreme Court reserved its order in the case, while the Securities and Exchange Board of India said it won't seek additional time to complete the probe. So, with the group clearing most of the regulatory and legal hurdles, is it safe to assume that the worst is over for the stocks?
Earlier corrections which was done in the stocks were overdone, And it is our opinion that, it has kind of bottomed out. But until the final judgment of the SC has come in, there would be some risk.
Fundamentally, too, analysts believe the group's businesses look strong.
Most businesses in most segments feature market leadership. Of course, a closer look at the businesses individually could highlight certain weaknesses and challenges that are very specific to the particular business, but that is like the case that could be with any other company as well. The idea is that the group's companies can now be assessed from a pure analytical standpoint without worrying about the contingent regulatory adversity overhang that has been lingering for the longest time now.
Against this backdrop, what are the key levels for the group stocks? As per technical charts, most group stocks are eyeing double-digit upside led by Adani Energy and Adani Green with 16% upswing in the offing each. Analysts expect Adani Group to regain fundraising capabilities and revisit stalled projects as concerns regarding corporate governance are being addressed. However, this suggests investors book profit in the stocks prior to the final judgment day to avoid any volatility. Today, on 6 December, the Reserve Bank of India will begin its 3-day monetary policy meeting.
He's making plans for an early retirement. Business Standard.
After Adani, let us turn our gaze to global diplomacy. India is increasingly being called as the voice of the Global South. It has just hosted the G20 summit and is aspiring to host the prestigious Global Climate Conference in 2028. But what is Global South? Ayush Mishra explains.
The term Global South is increasingly finding echo in global summits. At the BRICS summit held in September this year, the current chair, South Africa, declared its goal was to advance the agenda of the Global South. For the United Nations, Global South is some sort of shortcut to refer to developing countries. The Global South nations have a relatively low level of economic and industrial development and are typically located to the south of more industrialized nations. However, the traditional list of nations that make up the Global South is vague, considering that these nations are now spread across a large spectrum of economic development. Global South replaced the term Third World post-Soviet Union dissolution in 1991. Third World garnered negative connotations linked to poverty and instability. Consequently, Global South emerged as a neutral alternative. Global South does not have a precise geographical boundary. It denotes shared political, geopolitical, and economic traits among nations. Many Global South countries, notably in Africa, bear legacies of imperialism and colonial rule. In recent decades, the Global South has undergone a transformative shift in economic and political influence. The World Bank notes a wealth transfer from the North Atlantic to the Asia Pacific, challenging traditional notions of economic power. Projections suggest that by 2030, 3 of the 4 largest economies will be in the Global South, led by China and India. The combined GDP of BRICS nations already exceeds that of the G7, while influential political countries like China, Saudi Arabia, and Brazil are increasingly playing influential roles in global affairs. In the future, the Global South can emerge as a big power through reinforced regional partnerships like SAARC, ASEAN, BIMSTEC to collectively tackle challenges and bolster economic ties.
I will achieve, I will fly high. I am the SBI.
I'm backed by the nation's trusted bank, SBI, the banker to every Indian.
The term Global South first appeared in the 1960s but took time to gain traction. Well, that is all for today. For more news, views and analysis, please log on to business-standard.com. . If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.